Hi. So I'm from Lipuvabrik, as she mentioned, and I'm here to share some of our experiences and lessons we've learned regarding materials, and then a little bit about our ideas or my ideas about sustainability in the field. So, about us. Lipuvabrik was founded in 1994, but we started our digital printing journey somewhere in the early 2000s when we got our first flag fabric printing machine, so a machine that we can print directly onto fabric with. And a little bit after that, we got our first paper transfer sublimation machines. And the digital printing craze really hit it off for us with the 2008 financial crisis when revenue from flags was going down, and we had to find ways to supplement the lost revenue, and we started making different types of sublimation products, which is not something you would guess from the name Flag Factory, but we do have quite a wide lineup of different accessories, different interior products. We even work with some fashion designers printing them fabrics. And in the 20 or so years that we've been active in digital printing, we have learned quite a few lessons, and some of them I will share with you today. Now, the first and I think the most important lesson that anyone in almost any industry can learn is never sell something that you haven't tested, which seems kind of obvious, but for us it went a little bit like this, that we're sitting in an office, client comes in, says, hey, we have this very specific project that we need a very specific fabric for. And you get a chance to whip out all the fabric samples that you have sitting in a cabinet or drawer somewhere. You go over them with the client, and the client says, yep, that one's perfect, need that one. And everyone's happy. You're happy you got the client is happy that they found the fabric seller is happy that they can sell you the entire roll, although you just need like 20 meters. But you order the fabric, takes a while to arrive, and then the client is already a bit antsy. They're like, yeah, I needed this actually yesterday, so please just hurry it up, get me what I need. And then you rush it through production, you send it off to the client, you think everything is well, and then you get a phone call from the client saying, okay, yeah, we got the fabric, we managed to make something of it, but it was not as perfect as we thought. Like, it was difficult to sew, we kept pulling to one side. In fact, it wasn't even the right size, it had shrunk, everything we put on there extra for finishing was just gone. And why didn't you warn me about any of this? But you couldn't, because you hadn't tested it. So after an experience like that, you start testing everything. You get a new fabric you want to put in your lineup, you print it in light colors, print it in dark colors, you sew it, you get it a little bit wet, let it dry, you wash it, you give it to a child to play with, you give it to your dog, see what happens. And that way you get this great amount of information about how the fabric acts in different situations. So depending on what the client wants to do with it, you have the power to warn them in advance, and that's how you keep your clients happy. That's how you keep your clients coming back. But not everything can be tested for. You can test for a lot of things, but not everything. And this brings me to the case of the curious shrinking roll, which also happened with one of our clients. It was a client from abroad. We have no idea how they found us, but they did, and they had a very specific fabric that they needed printed, and they asked if we can do it. We said, yeah, if it's 100% polyester, then our color should adhere to it nicely. So they said, yeah, that's true, and we asked them to send us a sample. So they did. It was a weird fabric. It was a bit like a foamy, like a yoga mat, and a bit stretchy, but we put it through the process, found that the colors adhered to it nicely, and sent it off to the client, and the client was happy with it. It was still retained all of its original properties even after being put through the calendar, so it was still a bit stretchy, a bit foamy, and the client wanted to go ahead with the order. So they sent us the first rolls. I think it was 2 to 3 rolls, 50 meters each. We printed the sublimation paper, put it through the calendar with the fabric, and everything seemed to work nicely. So we packed it up, shipped it to the client, and got a pretty puzzling phone call a few days after where the client was like, okay, yeah, the fabric is nice, the color is nice, but what'd you do with some of it? And we were like, nothing, because we didn't really agree on doing anything with it, and why would we? And the client said, yeah, but I sent you a 50-meter roll, but what I got back was 45 meters. So there's a big chunk of it missing. And we explained that we really didn't do anything with it, and said like, okay, let's test it. Send us a new roll, but before you send it to us, just weigh it to like make sure that you can weigh it afterwards, and you can see that it's the same amount of fabric. So that's what the client did. The client weighed the fabric, sent us the roll. We weighed it when we got it. It was the same weight. Then we printed it. We know that it was 50 meters because we printed 50 meters of paper, and it matched up with the fabric. We documented it, weighed it again just in case, and shipped it to the client with all the information that we had gathered. Client got it, weighed it, said, yep, perfect, same amount. And then a few days later, we got a phone call saying, yep, still some fabric is missing. So we got to theorizing again, and we told the client that to take a roll that he has, open it up, measure it, and then just leave it for a few days, and then come back to it. And as it turns out, just by unrolling the fabric, it started shrinking. And later we found out that in the fabric, or in the factory where the fabric was made, when they rolled it in such high tension and packed it so tightly that it was in an elongated state in the roll. And after we had printed it, we rolled it up, but not as tightly. So in the transport, it had time to release the tension and get back to its natural state. And that was what was happening with that particular fabric. So the client was not very happy that he was buying 50-meter rolls and getting 45-meter rolls, but the other bits of the fabric were so perfect for his products that he decided to keep using it. And that was a nice little surprise that we weren't expecting, but it goes to show that you need to keep an open mind and just figure things out as they come along. And interestingly enough, the final issue or lesson I wanted to share was also about shrinking fabric. I titled it Double or Nothing. And this was with one of the fabrics that we wanted to add into our own collection. It was a very nice fabric, had a very good feel, it had a very good price. But when we started testing it, we found out that you can't really print on it because it shrinks so much that you can see shadows from the rest of the design as it shrinks when it's in contact with the sublimation paper. So we were at an impasse because we really liked the fabric. We didn't want to scratch it, but if we can't print on it, then are we going to start looking for a similar one? Do we try to make it work? But we did try, and we figured out that we have to press it or twice through the calendar. So the first time when we get the fabric, we just put the entire roll through the calendar to let it shrink. And then when it's done the first pass, then we can just put it in there with the sublimation paper, and then it doesn't shrink at all. So by doubling our calendar phase of the production, then we got the fabric to work, and it was a pretty good hit with some of our customers, if I remember correctly. But this brings me to the idea of sustainability. So because we had to press the fabric twice, we actually got to be a bit more sustainable, because otherwise our calendar would have run empty and would have just wasted all the energy that we were putting into it. But because we gave it a job to do, we could actually find a use for that energy. And I think these are the two main issues with sustainability in the field, is that we use energy and we produce waste. And I don't think there's ever going to be a time where we won't do either, but I think that we have to be smart about what we do with it. And for us, the main energy consumer in our production is definitely the calendar press that we have to heat up to about 200 degrees, depending on what fabrics we're using. And it's not going to change because the fabrics need that kind of heat, but we can be smart about not wasting the energy that we are using. So either having enough printed up front that we are slightly bottlenecked at the calendar so it always has something to do, or if we don't have enough work at the moment, then we can just choose when we're going to use it, like use it every other day or once a week. But that does have to be balanced out with business objective, because you can't really delay client orders as long as you need to like make it make sense to use some machinery. Other things that we've done to reduce our energy signature is that we had our entire building retrofitted with some new fancy heating, cooling, and lighting systems that all run through a central server that can be customized on a per room basis, depending on when someone uses the room and what temperature they need it to be. Has some kind of sensors that make sure that you're not heating it when it's already hot enough, or cooling it when it's already cool enough. So that made a pretty big impact on the energy consumption of the company as a whole. And unfortunately in Lipuvabrik we don't have solar panels, but in one of the other companies that I'm also active in, we were lucky enough to get rooms on a plot that has its own solar farm. So there we get 30% of our energy from solar, from our own solar array. So that is also a good way to become a bit more sustainable if the chance arises. But in my opinion, the best way to be more sustainable is to do things right. So when we mess up an order, when the client isn't happy, when something doesn't go as it should, then chances are that you need to make it for the client again and again until you get it right. And that means that you're using 2-3 times the resources, the energy and the materials for an order that you would have if you would have gotten it right the first time. So it's important to be optimized, to have very specific processes for each step of your production and to actually follow those processes. And there's an idea that I read in a book once that said, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I think this is what should apply to each production as well. So even when you're in a rush, you take your time to make sure that your print files are correct, that your machines are in working order, that you've dialed the settings in right, that you don't skip any steps in your process, because that's when accidents start happening, and that's when things get messed up, and that's when you might need to do everything again for a second or a third time. So in conclusion, be smart, be smooth, and be ready for surprises. Thank you.
For questions? It was a very smooth storytelling.
Thank you.
Everyone are very captivated. Maybe I will ask, you mentioned sustainability, which is a very hot topic. How do you feel that Lipuvabrik is very up to date with the sustainability parts?
I think there are things that we could do better, but we are actively working on it. We've been through a number of workshops with like EAS, trying to figure out ways to make things more sustainable, and we are currently working with a mentor who is also helping us like overhaul some of our products, and also who works in sustainability. So when we get to that point in the mentorship, we're going to also go over a bit of our like production practices to see where we can fine-tune some things even more. So I don't think it's an issue where you can like be good at it or be done, but it's supposed to be like a constant road of improvement, just trying to see where you can get things dialed in a little bit better.
And what was the first step? So if there are some printing companies here, how did you start with the sustainability topic?
Well, I think the first and the easiest thing to do in theory is to start optimizing your fabric waste. So just when printing something, try to figure out ways to lay the products out on fabric as tightly as you can, so that you're not producing any excess fabric that you can't later use. And also we've tried to figure out what to do with the bits of waste that we do produce, but that is a difficult challenge, and we're still working on that.
Okay.
With the fabric which you have troubles with, did you try the glue paper?
No.
That's actually which helped me with similar issue.
Okay.
Glue paper. And also, like, since we use the flat press, we cut the paper somewhere to remove the pressure points. Because, like, we had the four-way stretch, so it was like even more stretchy.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was what happened and what helped me. But this is what I wanted to ask if you tried with glue paper.
Yeah, because we don't have the glue paper in-house for the things we use, and we were just working with what we had at the moment, and since we found the way that works for us, then we didn't really go any further with testing other things, because don't fix what ain't broken. But that's a good point. I will keep that in mind for the next time something like that might come up.
Because usually calendars don't use the glue.
Yeah.
Not the obvious choice.
Okay. Thank you very much.